Welcome to Our Take. I'm Christina Brown, and joining me today is someone that you are sure to recognize from exciting job competition show, NBC's Apprentice, Kelly Smith Beaty. Thank you so much for joining us here.
Thank you for having me.
This is launch week, and you are here.
I'm happy to be a part of this. This is great.
You know, a lot of people remember you from your time on The Apprentice. I have to ask, Donald's hair,
yes,
real?
We still are not sure. We still don't really know.
What was that experience like for you?
It was amazing. It was incredible. You know, from a purely entertainment standpoint, it was a lot of fun. Those kinds of experiences, you get out of them what you put into them. I went into it looking to have a great experience, and I did.
And you didn't do badly.
No,
you went all the way to episode 6.
My goal was to not go home first.
Right.
I achieved that. I did not embarrass my parents, so it was a good run.
All right. Well, I'm very, very happy to have you here.
Thank you.
You are the guest host. Don't be shy. Jump right in. And actually, a little later in the show, we're going to be talking about the portrayal of African American women in non-scripted reality television. So I'm sure you're going to have lots of opinions on that.
I have a lot to say about that.
All right. Well, let's take a look at the news topping the Daily Take headlines. Today, President Obama called for arms reduction on his first trip to Berlin, Germany as president. Obama called for up to a 1/3 reduction in U.S. and Russian nuclear stockpiles. Speaking at the Brandenburg Gate, which stood alongside the Berlin Wall, dividing communist East Berlin from the capitalist West, the president delivered remarks on the 50th anniversary of John F. Kennedy's famous speech. President Obama says it is possible to ensure American security, reduce nuclear weapons, and he intends to seek negotiated cuts with Russia to move beyond a Cold War nuclear posture. Meanwhile, protests in Brazil continue to grow. Demonstrators have tapped into widespread frustration with poor public services, police violence, and government corruption. 200,000 Brazilians marched in a half-dozen cities, with crowds amassing in Sao Paulo. The protests were originally sparked by a hike in bus fares, but they expanded to embrace broader issues, with most demonstrators saying the fare increase was just the last straw of a variety of issues. And Kelly, this is something that we're really seeing play out in a lot of places, a lot of countries around the world. In fact, it was Turkey that captured most of the headlines just last week. What kind of insight can you shed with regards to how the financial climate is really affecting everyone across the board?
You know, what I think is most interesting when I was reading about Brazil specifically is this protest flies completely in the face of what the country is trying to do for their brand. And as a PR and branding expert, I'm fascinated by this because what the people are saying is you're spending millions of dollars building stadiums and trying to attract people when people here are hungry. Right. And so this is really a case of, you know, are we putting lipstick on a pig, and should we really be investing in the country and then letting the country's greatness speak for itself?
But when you talk about brand in particular, and of course we're talking about a country's brand, which is a little different than, say, a personal brand or a corporation's brand, isn't part of that marketing, if you will, supposed to attract business, attract the very types of corporations and entities that will then put money back into the country and hopefully trickle down?
Absolutely, and it's a very tricky balancing act because now what Brazil has to worry about is will people now be afraid to come into the country? Anytime you start to see civil unrest, it's really not a welcoming environment for tourists. But in this, you know, in the same respect, we've seen the same thing play out in Atlanta. For example, you know, Miami had legislation in Florida recently about wanting to have a new stadium, and people there weren't necessarily happy about that. The city of Atlanta went through something very similar, where they, you know, wanted to, and they actually approved a new stadium, and the people there were saying, hey, we need education. So this is not just a foreign problem. It's something that we see across the world, and it's how do we attract people with these same dollars, but at the same time, how do we invest in our cities and in our countries to make sure that they really are as great as we say they are?
And you know, something else that's kind of interesting about Brazil is that their president, Dilma Rousseff, has actually, in some ways, kind of encouraged it. She's at least said that she's proud that people are demonstrating to the tune of 200,000 and perhaps destroying and growing and destroying property is something else. But that is certainly a very different response than what we saw in Turkey, where President Erdogan crack down in a very militaristic way. We'll certainly have to see how this plays out, but I do appreciate that perspective in terms of trying to balance how you attract business, but at the same time take care of needs right there at home.
I think this will be interesting to watch for, because we also see the difference in women as leaders and how that plays out as well too. So I think this will be a very interesting case to watch as it unfolds.
Something else that we have to watch as well is the House, specifically House Republicans. I like to say it like this: House of Representatives hard at work this summer, passing a sweeping anti-abortion bill despite it having no chance of becoming law. That's what you want your taxpayer dollars to go to. Well, last night, House Republicans passed a bill that would ban abortions after 20 weeks. Most states currently allow abortions up to 24 to 26 weeks. Now, you might remember that the issue of abortion and Planned Parenthood captured headlines when the Komen Foundation, a breast cancer awareness group, pulled funding for breast cancer screenings for a time because Planned Parenthood performs abortions in some locations. Well, that backlash caused major changes for the organizations, and we are certainly seeing signs of it right now. Now, Susan G. Komen has a new CEO. You're looking at her, 61-year-old Judith Salerno, who's currently executive director and chief operating officer of the Institute of Medicine. She will take over. A lot to this story, clearly. I mean, it has been years since Roe v. Wade, and it has been years that we have seen non-stop, endless fight to chip away at that freedom. It's such a politically divisive issue.
You know, you have to wonder where they're going with this. Like you said, I mean, this legislation has absolutely no chance. And so you really have to wonder, what is the end goal here? And we've consistently seen women say, you know, get out of my uterus here. Every time this comes up, there's, you know, absolute backlash against it. And so I'm really curious to see what the end goal is and how this plays out. I'm stumped by it.
I think the other thing that's kind of fascinating about all of this, when we talk about what's the end goal, there's still obviously a lot of momentum and a lot of support for this kind of legislation, because it certainly wouldn't have gotten as far as it has. But it does seem interesting to me that, you know, we have these battles for privacy. We have these battles for security. We have these battles for the right to be able to determine what I want to do with my body. But it's so not as private as we would like it to be. It is something that clearly the government and people certainly get involved in. I'm curious, though, what you make of this new individual, Judith Salerno, as CEO of the Komen Foundation. From a branding perspective.
Yes.
What
I'm
does that
excited.
signal?
I'm very excited. It's an important move for Komen. I mean, they have to move forward. They have been such a successful brand for so long. And, you know, we saw last year, for the first time, that kind of unravel in a big way. And so I am happy to see that they have moved, I'm not going to say swiftly, but I hope effectively. It's an important organization. They do important work, and it's really time for them to move forward. That's what the organization is saying, that this is about moving forward. People are asking them, you know, what will be the continuation of the relationship with Planned Parenthood, and they're saying, look, we settled that, we're going to move forward, and that's absolutely what this is about. I think it's important. I'm excited for them, and I hope this works out.
All right, it sounds like they were taking advice from someone who is probably taking advice from you, from your page. All right, next story in the Daily Take, get this, as if we didn't already know, more than 1 in 3 Americans, now that's approximately 190 people, are considered obese. But now the American Medical Association has officially recognized obesity as a disease. Advocates actually believe that this change, this formal recognition as a disease, could be an important step forward for awareness and prevention. I was looking at some notes on this earlier, Kelly, and it's interesting. It says $150 billion is how much it costs. It's a medical burden every year, $150 billion in medical costs. Childhood obesity has tripled in the last 30 years. Just simply saying that it's a disease, is that really going to get people to start working out, start eating the right foods? Is that enough?
You know, it's a great first step. It's a great first step. We've seen in our lifetime even the shift of behavior and understanding with things like smoking and the harms of tobacco, where, you know, when I first was growing up, you know, there was a battle over, is this healthy? I have the right to smoke if I want to. But we've seen through legislation and through public awareness campaigns that it really did change the behavior. And so I think the hope is that we will change the behavior. Right now, people are saying, I'm overweight, but I'm healthy, I'm happy, and that's great. It's about happiness, it's about wholeness. I think the line that we want to be careful not to cross is to not ostracize people, and so that we all feel good about our bodies, but our bodies are directly tied to our health and our longevity, and we have to have honest conversations about that. I think it's a great first step, and my hope is that it will open the door for insurance practices to open up so that people can be treated, and that this can be treated as a disease so that we can take care of it in a way that the people of our country can live long lives, we can be healthy and effective, and continue to go about the work that it takes to move our country in the right direction.
And it will take certainly a lot of work.
Absolutely.
We're talking about 1/3 of the population.
I mean, you can see it. You especially see it in the children, and you have to wonder, what has happened from the time that we were growing up to the time that, you know, our kids and our nieces and our nephews are growing up in now? You can see the change in bodies, and we do have to get that back under
There's
control.
no doubt about it. Well, in Texas, really across the nation, it is, of course, June 19th everywhere. But for many, it is Juneteenth, and that means it is time to celebrate. Juneteenth is the day in 1865 that word hit Galveston, Texas, that slavery had been abolished. Now, in downtown Houston, a parade wound its way through Emancipation Park. That park was built on land purchased by former slaves, and for decades was the only park where blacks were allowed to use. Juneteenth is the oldest known U.S. celebration of the end of slavery, also known as Emancipation Day. And full disclosure, I'm going to out one of my fellow co-workers who had never heard of Juneteenth, didn't know what it was about. And he said, is that when everyone gets together and reads the Emancipation Proclamation? No, David, that's not what we do. But we do celebrate certainly a monumental day
Absolutely.
in history.
What a great day it is. And I was coming in, the sun is shining. What a perfect day for Juneteenth. It's something that, you know, I really hope that we'll embrace it. It used to be a much bigger holidays, and after the Depression, it kind of calmed down. We saw a little bit of a resurgence in the 80s and 90s, and it started to peak off again. But I would love to see this, you know, take back up and become a big day for African Americans. Not just here, but across the globe. Absolutely. I mean, it's a proud day in American history, and I would love to see that become bigger and better.
And hopefully it will.
Yes.
Now, something that many might say is bigger and better, especially when it comes to all the followers and internet buzz that it's getting. It's an ad for Kraft Zesty salad dressing. Unfortunately, it leaves little to the imagination and is facing criticism from one group of moms. The model Anderson Davis, now known as Zesty Guy, oh my gosh, I can't even read anymore, or nearly naked guy, as some might say. That's precisely what has got 1 million moms. It's an organization, a conservative group, very hot and bothered.
What's your style? In the mood to show off a little leg? Maybe, like me, you have a signature look. Or perhaps, au naturel.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear a word he said.
I missed the whole thing.
I didn't hear anything.
I missed all of it.
I don't. I'm sorry. What
are we
selling?
talking about? I didn't.
Well, Million Moms is not a fan. In fact, they put out a quote. They say, Kraft has gone too far and will push away loyal conservative customers with this new ad campaign. Christians will not be able to buy Kraft dressings or any of their products until they clean up their advertising. Now, what a dressing down. From Million Moms to Kraft. I mean, here's the thing. Kraft basically says, you know, listen, if it's too hot in the kitchen, then you got to get out. They're probably getting more advertising.
Absolutely. The question is, you know, will it sell more salad dressing? But it will get them more eyeballs. It will get them more conversation. I might revisit my kitchen now. Who knows?
I know I'm certainly going to go get some salad dressing. Well, listen, we are on Facebook and Twitter. Follow us on Twitter at Our Take Arise TV, and remember to like and leave comments on our Facebook page, Our Take on Arise TV. You can leave a comment about Zesty Guy.
Zesty.
You're watching Our Take on Arise TV.